Welcome back and thanks for watching Morning Live. Now, the COVID-19 lockdown has disrupted school schedules around the country. Next week, Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga will present her proposal for the rest of the 2020 academic year to Parliament. Now, one consideration is to move the June and September exams to November and December. Another, perhaps to cancel any further school holidays. Now, there are concerns that the reopening of schools cannot happen in isolation. In other words, there will have to be enough transport for teachers and scholars who need it. And parents will need to work to pay fees, and there will need to be consistent testing of learners to make sure that schools don't become infection sites for COVID-19. So joining us now via Skype is the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, Mhlanga. Thanks so much for speaking to us this morning, and welcome to Morning Live.
Yes, Sakina, good morning, and thank you so much for having us again.
Mr. Mhlanga, as you can imagine, learners are worried, especially if you think about grade 12s, wondering if this entire year will be lost. Parents are worried. Society at large is concerned about the impact of this pandemic on teaching and learning. So please, in the absence of any clear directive at this stage, and understandably so, what can you tell us about the 2020 academic year as things stand right now?
Well, Sakina, you're correct. There is anxiety and people are uncertain as to what is going to happen to the 2020 school year. But the position from the Department of Basic Education is that we are going to rescue the 2020 school year. We have a detailed and comprehensive curriculum implementation plan that is going to assist us to recover all the lost days. We are going to work very hard with and through provinces to make sure that we do our best to get the school year back on track again. And we are saying this because we have had some experience in implementing drastic measures that will fix the time losses that we have incurred. In Miraflores, you remember that there was a conflict where schools were not in operation for some 2 months. And also in Bowani, there was also a lengthy and protracted dispute, which also disrupted schooling for about 2.5 months, if not 3. And even with that, or those two situations, we're able to work out a plan that enabled the department to recover and prepare the learners for final year exams without any compromise that could have taken place. So we are relying on that experience to prepare a recovery plan, and we are confident that what the minister is going to outline in the next few days is going to put the anxiety to ease and give direction in terms of what must happen. Of course, right now we understand that there's a lockdown which is in place, but we are using this time for planning purposes.
Mr. Mhlanga, we know that these are not normal circumstances. We have been reading about what some of the department's plans may be to try and normalize, perhaps as best as possible, once schools actually do reopen. So explain to us what some of those plans are.
Well, not really plans, but discussions have touched on a variety of options that we could opt for. And these are some of the things we've done in the past, which involve the extension of the school day, and in this instance, also the reduction of the holidays that we still have ahead of us in terms of the school calendar. But also it means having to consider whether we should be teaching over the weekend and getting our teachers and our learners to do more work and doing it at a much faster pace without compromising the curriculum planning that is there in each year in terms of what learners should learn and know at a particular time in the year, per term, per grade. So all of those things are in place. But remember, in this particular instance, we also have that additional responsibility to make sure that when our learners go back to school, they are safe from the coronavirus. So we are also making those additional preparations to ensure that all of them are protected against sanitizing the places and making sure that all of them have protective gear such as masks and other things. But we also need to consider the whole issue of the seating arrangement in classrooms and all of those. Basically, social distancing is one of the things that we're looking at now to say in basic education, how do you make that a reality, taking into consideration the pressures that the basic education system has come under due to the demand for spaces in different schools, which have more numbers than required, particularly in provinces like Gauteng, where there's always a huge demand for enrollment in schools in the province, but also other provinces where learners are enrolling in high numbers. So that's one of the things that we need to take into account. So it's not just planning for curriculum implementation, but it's also just the new environment, because now there's going to be a new normal. How do you relate? How do you provide counseling to learners who might be afraid to go to school? How do you deal with the anxiety among our teachers who might be fearful that they will contract the virus? So we need to deal with all of those things. So the plans that we have put in place, they address all those areas.
So, Mr. Mhlanga, you say you've had discussions around these matters. I'm curious to know exactly what the discussions were in terms of possible solutions around the issue of physical distancing, noting that our schools are, in most instances, overcrowded.
Well, the reason I'm not giving you the details of the plan is simply because the minister has presented the plan to the National Coronavirus Command Council, I think yesterday, and also we've been informed that there will be a special cabinet meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, where these plans are going to be considered. So it's only her who will unveil the details in a few days from now in a media briefing, where she will then say what has transpired within those platforms where these plans would have been taken through. So that's where we are now. It's for her to say we don't know what the final version of the plan will be, but she's going to brief us and then let the public know what the expectations are and what it is that the department is doing at the moment. So right now it's still in discussions. You know that it's a sensitive matter that requires proper consultation within the stakeholder base of the department, but also within the government itself. Because this now implies that each and every department that has a responsibility over children, particularly with us, they will also need to play their part to make sure that we return our learners to school safely so, and making sure that education continues without any anxieties that people might have.
Mr. Mhlanga, let's talk to the issue of online classes, because as we speak right now, there is still no clarity, no indication whatsoever as to when this lockdown may be lifted. So in that avenue, with regard to online classes, what is the state of play right now?
Well, the focus is not so much on online classes. What we've done is to put together a portal, which is on our website, on our landing page, with resources that parents can use in the home to uh, support their children while the lockdown is still in place, and all that support material is there. But we've gone further to partner with the SABC, who have availed SABC 1, 2, and 3 to flight lessons, which play every day. And we also have an agreement where 13 radio stations of SABC are also in use to flight these lessons every day. And it's a partnership that we are currently using. We've also partnered with a whole range of community radio stations around the country who are also flighting lessons, which are playing as a stopgap measure. Our strength is really in the classroom. We are not familiar with this type of situation. However, we needed to put a plan in place to try close the gap that could have existed as a result of the coronavirus lockdown. So that's where we are now. And of course, there are also other partners who have availed their platforms to try support learners at this point, to try keep them engaged, to make sure that they don't forget their schoolwork, because these are difficult times. People are locked at home. They are told to stay at home to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. And because of that, we say, here are things that you can do. And we have outlined and given a list of where to find those resources. So we understand that online, yes, it's an option for some people, but other people have no access to that. That's why some of our partners said, yes, we can give you, or we can make available our zero rated platforms where education material can be found. So that's where we are. We're trying to cover for as many people as possible wherever they are. It's difficult to monitor it because it's something that is happening at home, and there's no way of knowing whether, in fact, it's being effective or not. We are relying on parents and guardians and caregivers to make sure that they assist their children to do some learning even during this lockdown.
Mr. Mhlanga, if we could just for a moment address some of the rumors and the myths that are doing the rounds about schools opening in July, about the minister possibly considering combining both the 2020 and 2021 academic years. Please speak to us about all of that.
Well, all of the things that you've just said are fake news. We don't know where it's coming from. It sounded like you were reading a newspaper article. I don't know what got to the journalist for them to write like that. I think maybe they felt a pleasure to say something that they thought would attract readers, but we don't believe that people should resort to such extent. No one knows when schools will be open. That's a fact. Any date that anyone would have committed on paper is a figment of their own imagination.
So, Mr. Mhlanga, a few other issues that I also want to touch on before we run out of time. Firstly, the school nutrition programs. And we saw last week the Western Cape Department of Education announcing that they would be embarking on that program to try and come to the aid of vulnerable learners. So the department's position on that, and also I see some civil society groupings will hopefully be speaking to Section 27 later, also feel that that is perhaps a good idea to resume these nutrition programs at schools. What is the department's position at national level?
Well, we share the same sentiment around having to feed learners. However, it is impossible at this point because our experience with the school nutrition program is that it's an activity that takes place within school premises, and the beneficiaries are listed in each school based on the register which each school has of who should be benefiting from it. And the outside school premises, we've never done it, and we don't believe that it's going to be possible, especially in an environment where we have been told to stay home and keep schools closed. So that's the position right now in terms of what the regulations are saying, that schools are closed, and that's it. So how do you feel? In this case, the minister said perhaps the Department of Social Development, who have experience in working within communities using their resources and networks, they could be able to assist us with that. But the Department of Basic Education has no experience in working with the community-based organization and has no infrastructure outside school to provide for learners in terms of their fitting school. The need for it is there, yes, but practically, how do we do it? That's the challenge that we're facing now. And remember, we have the coronavirus to deal with, and already we lost a teacher in KZN to it, and a learner tested positive, and another teacher also tested positive. So we are already anxious about the impact that this might have if we were to open schools and allow for people to walk into premises which the regulations say should not be happening at this point. So that's where we are. It's a complex one, but we believe that right now, as everybody is home, those children who would be benefiting from the school nutrition program would be assisted by their families, neighbors, relatives, and anyone else who is close to them and can give them something to eat while we are enjoying the lockdown, which is really uncomfortable for all of us. Even this building, by the way, is closed down. It's just about 5 or so of us who are able to come in because we've got permits. But the fact is that to administer such a massive program of 9.6 million children without creating a gathering is going to be impossible. It's on that basis that we feel it should not happen at this point. We should wait for the right time when the lockdown has been lifted.
So I do know that the Western Cape had already opened that last week. I spoke to the MEC, Debbie Schaefer there. And has the department, or does the department intend opposing that action from the Western Cape Department of Education?
Well, in the meeting of the minister and the MECs, which took place last week, she made it clear to all MECs that feeding should not be taking place. So the MEC for Education in the Western Cape was part of that meeting, and she was present when the minister made this point. And we expect everyone to adhere to what the minister has said, as she's empowered by the regulations to make that type of directive.
But if they are not, will there be repercussions?
I don't know. That will be dealt with at the right level. I know that CEM is the platform where the decisions in the basic education sector are made, and agreements are entered into at that point. And that's the only platform where matters will be dealt with. I anticipate that should there be problems, it will go back to that point, or alternatively, the minister will engage the MEC.
And then just a final question, Mr. Mhlanga, and I'm sure you've seen this, I'm sure you've heard about this, the backlash on social media to a reading campaign by an NGO using celebrities and well-known South Africans. What is the department's role in all of this? And also, what is your view given the backlash that this particular initiative has received?
The backlash is extremely unfortunate. It's based on a misunderstanding of what is really taking place. We have seen what people are saying on social media, but we've also seen that some organizations have also made comments, and those comments are premature because they were made without the necessary information being made available to them. Why they didn't ask, we don't know. But what is happening is that the department established the Read to Lead campaign in 2015 and called upon all South Africans to establish book clubs and to encourage South Africans to read. It is within that context that the Africa Teen Gigs also established a digital reading club and invited their friends and colleagues to form a digital reading club to urge South Africans to read books during this lockdown. And they have a whole range of people who have agreed to participate in this initiative by reading books and posting the videos on the digital platform. And we are saying that there's no need for anyone to have the qualification in order to read a book. Anybody can read a book, and it's an initiative which has been funded by SOSO, who feel that reading is important in this country and that everyone must participate in it. But the other thing that we need to make is that this initiative by Africa Teen Gigs has two components. The one part involves qualified teachers. In fact, this morning we'll be publishing all the names of the 56 teachers who are participating in this particular initiative, who are teaching children online, supporting them in whatever way. Even that particular initiative is optional. It's just teachers trying to do their bit. And then on the other side of it, you have the reading club. So people have confused the two, thinking that the celebrities are teaching. The celebrities are merely reading books to encourage people to read, to entertain the learners, but also keep them engaged on the written way. Whereas the other component of this particular project is really teachers who are SABC registered, by the way, and we'll be making the details available this morning. Because we see that some people who are complaining that these teachers are unqualified and all of that. Yes, the celebrities, there's no need for you to have a qualification to read a book. But on the other side, where teaching takes place, all those teachers have training and have qualifications. There's only 2 student teachers there who are not fully qualified. But in terms of the South African basic education system, student teachers are allowed to provide support to teachers even within formal schooling. Okay. So in this case, it's not a school. There's no formal school. It's just a platform for learner support on the digital space. That's all that it is. So we hope that people will start to understand that it's not a school. It's just an additional platform that's available online. That is optional. There's no subscription involved, and there was no tender that was entered into. It's just an initiative by a group of young people who approached a private company also to fund their initiative. And those 56 teachers are getting paid, by the way. And there was a public advert which was advertised to recruit teachers, and that's how the teachers were selected.
Mr. Elijah Mhlanga, thank you so much, spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, talking to us about a range of issues and plans for the 2020 academic year, which the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, will be presenting to Parliament.